So thank you so much to all the panelists and the moderators of the last session. We're now going to transition to our final session for the day, which are regenerative logic technology showcases. So we have an incredible lineup. I know it's not politically correct, nor even really fair at all to say with so many amazing panels and speakers today that we saved the best for last, but I think we may have saved the best for last. It's been a really long day, so we're going to shift the format a bit to keep things fresh. And to lead this next segment, I have the pleasure of introducing a new friend that I also met at COP in Glasgow this November, Sonam Balani, who is a true pioneer in the urban innovation movement, active for years as a social entrepreneur, working inside the New York City mayor's office prior to stints at Goldman Sachs and the World Bank. She gained tactical insights and built her personal logic and knowledge base about how change happens at the city level. All of this perfectly informs her next act, which is currently under stealth mode, but we get a little tease today. She's launching the Urban Resilience Studio, a venture lab and investment fund that supports diverse founders building climate tech for cities. Her goal is to seed, test, and iterate new technologies in a real-world urban environment in partnership with policymakers, business leaders, and frontline communities. Think a cross-sector innovation lab that's focused on climate tech, like recycled asphalt for New York City's 6,000 miles of road, or nature-based solutions to protect our 578 miles of coastline, and scaling these innovations to cities around the world. Sonam is a powerhouse and absolutely one to watch, but today she's shining the spotlight on other innovators in a few featured technical showcases. So without further ado, over to you, Sonam.
Thanks, Brian. It's great to be here. Today's not about me. It's about showcasing all these fantastic companies and organizations in the regenerative space, utilizing solutions that show how logic is set in motion when cutting-edge technologies and social innovation meet, helping us achieve the sustainable development goals. We're very lucky to have some extraordinary leaders here working on the future of housing, climate solutions, impact investing, and more. We are sure you will be inspired. First up, I want to introduce Chris Fronda, CEO and CLO of Logictry.
Awesome, thank you. All right, I guess we'll go ahead and share our screen. 1 second.
Chris, whoever over there is kind of controlling as host, you might just kind of, we're going to do this, the format will be kind of quick 7-minute presentations. So you might just pin the speaker and the presentation. And then at the end, we'll all come back for a collective Q&A, just as a recommendation.
Okay, so you're saying instead of spotlighting everyone right now?
Yeah, exactly. Perhaps
okay.
Just Sonam, you and the presentation, or even just you and the presentation.
That works. All right. All right, can everyone see my screen okay?
Yep.
Awesome. All right, well, I'm gonna give a quick look at some of the technology and then also talk about just what we're doing and how, again, what we want to do is make technology and logic more accessible for everyone. And so what we'll look at, and I want to break this up into, there's 3 different parts that I'm going to showcase about what we're doing here at Logictry. And so I'm going to show, I'll announce what those 3 parts are as I go through it. And so the first thing, we are looking at the platform that we have where everything centers around building what we call logic apps. And so when you're in the environment, we have the very first part is around using a no code to where anyone can build some of the no code widgets. If you've heard this before, it refers to allowing those who don't have a programming background to be able to build apps and functionality, so doing it without any coding. And what we focus on in the no code space is more around packaging up logic. And so, for example, there's a quick app that we've built here that showcases a chat bot being used in this instance. And so as we look, there's different forms and variations of how you can package up that logic. And one of them is creating a chat bot that could walk someone through a decision like, should I form an LLC or an Inc., where you walk through that logic. And what I'll showcase briefly is just a little bit of the building of a quick chat bot or some type of a decision tree that you're making. So if you are in the environment and you create a new app, then we'll just create a quick chat bot example. And I always show this this one example here, and we start with a simple question, and I'll make this one just a more of a fun one of where should we go on a trip. So say we're making a quick chat bot about asking people, should we go to California or Colorado? And what we can do here is start to build out different paths in the logic around, well, if we pick California, then we could ask, do you surf, right? Yes or no. And then if we go to Colorado, we could ask a different question of, do you ski? Yes or no. And you see that we've arranged these little building blocks, and this arrangement starts to build out this dynamic kind of decision tree path of, depending on which path you go, which question you're going to get presented with. Now, if we go back, we can put another quick block here, this little chat bot, and we can drag that underneath it. And then now we have those same questions being presented in a chat bot form to go through Colorado, and then do you ski versus California, do you surf? Now, this is a really quick, simple example, but just to mention some of the examples is this is how we've worked with companies actually to systematize some of their knowledge around different subject matter that they want to be able to package it up and then help their customers better self-service. I want to show another quick example that's a bit more of a complex one. And this is one of the things that we built for a company called National Instruments that has a very complex suite of products. And what their challenge is how to handle as a salesperson there at the organization, how to think through all the questions of customer discovery and what products match to the needs. It's a very complex decision-making process. And so what this is highlighting is that as you go through these questions as a question-led experience, it starts to showcase, what products might match. And as you keep going through the questions and answer, it's now showing and filtering down to exactly what matches with those requirements. And what's interesting about this is that dynamic nature and a lot of the future plans that we have is really to highlight the impact that a question might have on the recommendations being made, so that you understand the impact of your answers as they relate in that decision-making process. So these are a couple of different examples. There's quite a bit more. Maybe one other to highlight briefly is a quick assessment tool that we built, because assessments are also something that some of the panelists have discussed today during the panel sessions, that being able to build an assessment tool that when you walk through like this diversity, equity, inclusion business assessment, when you get to the end of it, this has recommendations on the score of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it provides some of the recommendations on how your organization might take steps in that path. And so building up, all of these different sort of logic apps that either are for assessment, gathering data so that we can make better data-driven decisions, or packaging up logic to guide you interactively through even the most complex decision. This is what we as a company are creating, a tool to allow subject matter experts to package up that information and to do it using their knowledge. Now that is part one of what we're doing. I'll just mention the other two a little bit more briefly because they relate to the teaching just software development in general, which we want to help foster. Anyone that is getting into programming and wants to learn to program and wants to build apps, each of these apps here, you can also, if I click on this here, you'll see that this is actually showing a React web app. Now, if I click on the editor, there's no logic that's been created here. And the reason for it is because in the same environment, we've actually created a React app and uploaded it into the platform. And so in the same environment, you've got some of the decision tools. You've also got completely custom software running all in one place. And so when we will be working with students learning to learn and accelerators, we can actually help, for example, a startup that's building their idea, we can help them build it. They can upload it into the environment. Their app now runs here. And we can then easily provide for them the entire backend databases, managed server. They don't have to think about any of that. They don't have to think about security. We handle all of those pieces for you. And then that's the part three, is that we actually have our own CRM that, there's startups that are looking to build, for example, their own custom tailored CRMs. And we're actually going to be providing a copy of our software to help them speed up that development of their software and then delivery through the platform. So to summarize all of that, the platform on one end is all about packaging, knowledge, human logic. And we've got something else exciting that we're not going to show today, but we're building a community of all of these apps that the content contributors make. And then on the other end, we can help students showcase the apps that they're building, and then also have that all get contributed into our ecosystem of apps that are being shared in the community.
Wow, thanks, Chris. I really love the platform for logic maps and BEI assessments. It's really fantastic what you've built.
Thank you.
Our next showcase features Josh Whitney, founder of MakeSoil.com. Josh is a social innovator launching startups that get people out of their cars and onto public transit. Now at MakeSoil, he is coordinating how communities support each other to compost. If you didn't know, about 1/3 to 1/2 of all waste that goes into landfills can be compostable. So it's one of the simplest interventions to have a huge climate impact. Josh was named a champion of change by the Obama administration. He's received a global impact visa by the New Zealand government, and his work has been highlighted by Fast Company magazine as among the most innovative in the world. I'm very excited to bring him onto the stage. Josh, over to you.
Thanks, everyone. I'm glad to be here. And I need to have my screen sharing enabled, if somebody could handle that.
Yes, 1 second.
Okay, good. Great. Can everyone see that?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Okay, well, again, I'm Josh Whitney here from MakeSoil.org. And I actually have a background in computer science, so I love that this is World Logic Day. And logic and first principles thinking is just one of my favorite things to do in ways to think. So the project you're about to see is definitely a product of that kind of thinking. So everyone here knows that we're facing some pretty big challenges today. I'll just rattle off a few: climate change, food insecurity. This is both that food is becoming less nutritious by the day, topsoil loss is at all-time highs, and food supply chains are getting, less and less stable. We have poor health and nutrition. The notorious Western diseases continue to spread around the world. And we have a lot of social division, perhaps more than we've had in a long time. And it would be much better if we had unity and peace. Peace is actually one of the SDGs. Believe it or not, there's one logical intervention that helps address all of these issues. And it's actually something that everyone can do anywhere on Earth, and it's free. And I know it sounds too good to be true, and you may not believe me when I tell you what that thing is diverting organic waste from landfills and turning it into soil. So right now, our society's relationship with organic matter and how we treat it is incredibly dysfunctional, and it's one of the biggest things we can change now. And if we changed it in the right way, then we could actually address 12 of 17 SDGs all at the same time. So let me explain. Currently, this is the status quo of what happens to our waste, and especially our organic waste, which is an incredible tragedy. In pictures like these, you'll see that there are always this giant mass of seagulls hanging out, and rats and other things at landfills. And that's because landfills are full of organic matter. That's why those animals and pests are there. They're not there for a good deal on used electronics. So instead of all that organic matter going to landfills, we should be doing something else instead. But currently, around 90% of the world's food waste still goes to landfills, produces 500,000 tons of greenhouse gases every year, and it takes valuable nutrients out of the food system forever. So, the banana peels, the coffee grounds, the eggshells, the tea bags, like all that stuff that we generate as humans and that the planet uses to feed us, those all contain nutrients that need to go back into the soil. And instead, they're being at large dumped into landfills where we'd never get to use them again. We also have atmospheric methane just continuing to rise. And one of the leading contributors to atmospheric methane is organic matter, again, rotting in landfills. So we know the problem, and governments have known this for decades. We even know the solution. Governments have also known that for decades. And that is that we need to turn that organic matter back into living, nourishing, nutrient-rich soil full of dark carbon, as you can see in this image here. So we know the solution. So the question is, how do we scale this globally? Before I go on, some people don't realize when the organic matter goes to landfills and rots, it's a different set of microbes that are causing the methane off-gassing when it's in a rotting environment. And when we put things through a composting environment instead, a different set of microbes wakes up and generates this beautiful humic matter here. So that's the equation. It'll either go this way or it'll go this way, doing something actually extremely damaging for the planet or something incredibly valuable to the planet and to our society. So we know that this is the solution, but how do we scale it globally? Well, MakeSoil empowers citizens to solve this problem. So they're no longer just waiting for governments or science or some new invention to solve the problem. And how does that work? It uses a dash of technology to match citizens who already know how to compost and who are composting in their backyards with neighbors who want to contribute their scraps. So it just turns out that right now on Earth, there's several million people who have mastered this art of composting and soil making, but they've never actually invited their neighbors to start bringing their food scraps to them. It's just kind of a social, it's not been a social thing, a social norm, but we're gonna make it a social norm, and here's how. So when you go to the makesoil.org platform, you'll see there that there's two main user types. There's one that we call the soil maker, and this is the person, again, who is making soil in their backyard, who really understands the process. You get the same artisanal feel of doing this process as you would get from making wine or beer or baking or something. It's a ton of fun. And they are matched with neighbors, and neighbors who know that their food waste doesn't belong in the garbage and who begin to bring the food scraps to the soil maker's backyard. And they get to be called a soil supporter because that's what they're doing. So this represents a distributed model for composting where everyone can participate. And we call that distributed organics recycling. And that is a model that cities ought to be adopting and that we are helping champion. And that is alternative to centralized organics recycling, where cities, if they do anything, they have to raise a lot of tax money and get a very expensive curbside composting program together and buy a fleet of trucks and run those trucks up and down every single street and pick up bins at every curb side. And it's not actually all that environmentally friendly in the end anyway. So this distributed organics model is beginning to spread around the world. If you go to the makesoil.org website, you will see that we already have over 800 soil sites in over 50 countries with thousands of households participating. If you go on our social media, you'll see that this is a movement that is actually underway. Here's one of our awesome soil makers, I believe in Dubai. She's got her MakeSoil shirt on. She's got her MakeSoil poster with its little QR code there that'll take you to her soil site. We have plans for how to build your own compost bin in case you don't want to, buy a big plastic one. And here, there's somebody on the internet. We just got tagged in this last week. This guy built one of these amazing soil maker boxes that we've designed, and his wife there is very proud of him. And so this is happening all over the world. And that soil maker box is actually going to go on to receive the food scraps from 4, 5, 6, maybe 10 households. It can handle a lot. So MakeSoil is already keeping 2.5 million pounds of organic waste out of landfills every year. We're preventing a million pounds of greenhouse gas emissions every year. But we are not going to stop there. We're being very ambitious about this, even though we're a nonprofit and that's our ethos. We want to employ the same distributed models that have allowed companies like Uber and Airbnb to scale. So some people say this is like Uber or Airbnb for composting, but some people joke it's even Tinder for composting. So let's talk about the first order effects. So we have, when I said that this can handle addressing 12 of the 17 SDGs, that's a tall order. But if you look at the first order effects of composting our organic waste, instead of putting it in landfills, we're keeping that out of the landfills. We're putting nutrients back into the local food system. We're reducing greenhouse gas emissions immediately because we're not producing that methane. And we're reducing a lot the CO2 off gassing as well. We build local community. We have people telling us that they have actually never known their neighbors until they started making soil together. And we can help cities save lots of money by dealing with their waste problem. Again, up to half of what goes to the landfill doesn't belong there. And this by far is the most cost-effective solution to cut down on that. There's second order effects as well. When people start making soil together, they start growing food together actually. It's kind of just the natural progression once you start making soil. And you really want to find solutions today, back to first principles thinking. If we can solve root causes of problems, you'll see a cascade of benefits, not just one little benefit. You'll see lots of benefits. It'll actually be hard to count all the benefits when you address a root solution. So diet and nutrition improves when people start growing food together. They start eating more organic, honestly, because they see that their food scraps aren't going away somewhere. They're staying in the local food system. Environmental awareness increases. This becomes one of the first truly regenerative experiences that anybody has ever had, usually. And that leads to improved mental health and well-being. It just feels good to do something positive for the planet that's actually meaningful. It's kind of a rough time being a human these days. We've got a bad reputation of wrecking the planet, but this is something actually positive that all of us can participate in. And it reduces climate anxiety. It alleviates it, because now when people's kids come home and say, Mommy, Daddy, what are we doing about climate change? Instead of the answer being a resounding nothing, which is what most parents have to tell their children, they can say, look, honey, that's why we take all of our food scraps to our local soil site, and they can tell the kids about it. They're actually taking climate action. So I think this is one of the most actionable climate actions that we can actually all directly participate in. And again, if we do all of that, those first and second order effects, we can address 12 of the 17 SDGs. I don't have time to go into that, but it's actually kind of obvious and a nice thought experiment if you look at each one and figure out which one it is. Pictorially here, we'll just look at how this actually plays out. Here's a soil site in an apartment complex. We took these photos. They start with a compost bin. I actually know that in this apartment complex, nobody knows how to compost. One person wanted to learn, but within a few weeks, dozens of people were participating. The compost bin began to fill up with leaves and organic matter and food scraps, and then they started a little garden off to the side there. And so again, you're going from this like scraggly patch of nothing to a nice little garden plot, and then to an incredibly abundant garden, all powered by local citizens and powered by what was otherwise going to be waste. So if we can just duplicate that, a few million times across the earth, we can do a lot of good. So here's the roadmap very briefly. We're kind of on the second one now, but we started by creating the social network for soil. Now we're actually having cities are coming to us and saying, let's make this an official part of our waste diversion strategy. So we're being adopted by cities now. So if you help run a city, please get in touch. We have corporations who are reaching out now who want our network to begin absorbing the organic matter that they're generating, like big coffee chains. We're going to be adding some gamification just so that we can start rewarding people for doing a really good job of doing this. And we have to get MakeSoil out of just English into a lot of other languages, if not every other language. How cool would that be? And then finally, we're going to help stimulate a regenerative economy. We're going to get people earning income for being soil makers. And I think that the soil maker can be the first regenerative job to go mainstream. We know it's time to act on this. Governments are beginning to ban organic matter from waste streams. Governments are beginning to give out compost bins for backyards, and we can help 5 or 10x the amount of usage and success of each of these compost bins. Again, corporations are reaching out saying, look, we have beautiful organic matter like coffee grounds. Can you help us keep them out of the landfill? And to just keep this project going and to expand it, we're looking to take in a minimum of 6 million and deploy that in the next 3 years. We are a nonprofit, but these are some of the most high leverage nonprofit dollars I think you can spend. And furthermore, I am the initial and largest donor to the organization, and I've been joined by a lot of my friends. And so come put your money where your mouth is, and I promise you we'll give you a lot of bang for your buck. And we can do all these beautiful things. So if you want to participate, please find a soil site near you. Every single person here eats, every single person generates food scraps, and you can find a soil site near you. If you know how to compost, start a soil site. If you run a city or a corporation, write us at hello@MakeSoil. If you're a philanthropist, please donate. And if you're on social, you can find MakeSoil at MakeSoil and me at Josh Whitney. So thanks so much, everybody, for your attention.
Wow, Josh, I really love how you're connecting folks to take climate positive actions every day, literally in their backyards. It's really incredible. And as a resident of New York City, which has a lot of trash for many of you who might live here, who've been visiting, I think this is a great solution to help get rid of our waste, right? And accomplish some of our goals of getting to zero waste to landfill by 2030. So it's really incredible. Thank you for sharing. The next showcase is from the visionary startup Geoship, presented by founder Morgan Bierschenk. Geoship is producing a new kind of home, helping solve the global housing crisis. Morgan's mission is to continue the work of Buckminster Fuller in creating an affordable regenerative home that can be manufactured on a global scale. Prior to Geoship, Morgan spent about 7 years in a variety of engineering roles at Intel, followed by 8 years of traveling the world to learn and discover new solutions. So Morgan, I'll transfer it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we're working on a company called Geoship, which is really focused on a new material science and a new manufacturing technology to make all ceramic geodesic domes and a regenerative village building platform. So as I'm sure everybody here probably knows, housing is, like air and like water, and it is a human need, right? And it's really treated as an extractive industry at this point. And conventional housing has become very unaffordable, unsustainable. There's a lot of toxic materials. We're just starting to understand really the level of the role our environment plays in our health. And there's also major housing shortages. The construction industry or home building industry spends less than 1% on R&D and innovation, pretty much less than any other industry. There's a lot of industry gatekeepers. The profits tend to go to the 1% as people are forced into renting, and real estate development procedures and whatnot end up kind of funneling wealth to the top. The houses are not climate proof. As we get more and more fires, earthquakes, hurricanes, storms, the houses that we live in are more and more challenged. And the whole industry is pretty much stuck in the past in a lot of ways, just incremental innovation, but we're still building with basically sticks and nails like they were 100 years ago. There's a lot of little innovations with power tools and stuff, but essentially stuck in the past in a lot of ways. So we're really continuing the legacy of Buckminster Fuller. Buckminster Fuller said that we're not going to be able to operate our spaceship Earth successfully, nor for much longer, unless we really see it as a whole spaceship and our fate is common. It has to be everybody or nobody. I love that quote because it really emphasizes that in order to bring the solutions of the future into reality, we really have to build solutions that are scalable for everyone on Earth. So our solution is really a combination of geodesic domes, regenerative villages, and a multi-stakeholder cooperative. So why geodesic domes? And let me back up for a second. A few people maybe not familiar with Buckminster Fuller. He's like kind of regarded as like the Leonardo da Vinci of the modern day American polymath architect who spent pretty much his whole life focused on designing a new home for mass manufacturing, like a people's home. So he was looking closely at like how nature makes shelter, and that led him to inventing the geodesic dome. And inventing the geodesic dome is a big deal. It's like a totally new geometry and a new math that doesn't come along very often. So Buckminster Fuller actually predicted that it would be about 50 to 100 years until the material sciences would catch up and would be able to build geodesic domes really in a mass manufacturing environment. And I'll get into it more in the next slide, but basically the material sciences are here now as of the last 7 or 8 years. So we're setting up automated, basically precasting ceramic, chemically bonded ceramic components. So similar to a regular house, you got like struts and panels, but they're geodesic and more mass efficient. And they come together into a full structure where the seams are also ceramic. So it's essentially a monolithic structure that is precast. So you can set up factories that can produce these ceramic parts and box them into containers, and it arrives on site, and a crew comes or an owner builder can pretty easily put the dome together on site, kind of like a piece of IKEA furniture or something. Another key part of our solution is really democratizing the whole village building process and neighborhood building process. So imagine, basically being able to step into a 3D environment with your friends and design one of these villages. It might be geodesic domes, and it might be other forms as well in the future. And then connect, it's essentially a market network. So once you form a community and come up with a vision that you want to build together, we can connect that community with resilience coaches and permaculture specialists and land trust specialists and impact investors, and then basically be able to walk that community through the whole design build process. And we're actually just started a collaboration with the Burning Man project. One of our domes will be one of the very first structures on Fly Ranch, which is a 3,800 acre ranch that's designed to be like the permanent home for Burning Man. And village building in the future could really be similar to Burning Man. I mean, you get together for a few months. A lot of people are there for a few months, not just a couple of weeks, and they have a good time building a village. But the outcome is, in this case, a ceramic geodesic dome village that has a 500-year life. And that's really, so part number 3 of our solution is a multi-stakeholder cooperative model. So we approach this with a for-profit approach because it's going to take a lot of capital to do what we need to do. So our solution to that is to bring, and instead of doing nonprofit, we do like profit for all. So bring all the different stakeholder groups that are engaged with or somehow affected by the company into co-ownership and co-governance. So, and a perpetual purpose-driven trust that keeps it moving along its purpose for eternity, hopefully. Or what's eternity? Anyway, so customers in nature will have basically 30 to 50% of the company will be owned by customers and nature stakeholders. And those stakeholders are essentially similar to like Airbnb setting up an endowment fund for hosts, except the endowment fund is a lot bigger portion of the company, and the dividends or benefit from ownership benefits go towards regenerative projects to either build the relationships within the community or the relationship between the community and the surrounding communities and the relationships between humans and nature. So really, that's our main kind of focus, is how to reconnect human communities with the natural world, to really build these relationships so that we can operate in a more kind of flow and thriving state. So the material science breakthrough, chemically bonded ceramics were invented at Argonne National Labs and announced to the world about 10 years ago. They're making their way into quite a few different industries. They have really unique properties, and it's like flash cure, no high heat required. It's a ceramic that kind of works like a cement, but the curing happens really quickly, so fast demolding of parts. And it also forms molecular bonds to metal, to wood, and to itself, pretty much all natural materials. So it's like a polymer ceramic concrete hybrid material. And you can see the life cycle carbon emissions. The embodied energy is just dramatically lower with a ceramic dome because wood, metal, concrete, plastic are all replaced with ceramic composites. So the frames, the panels, and the insulation is all ceramic composites. And also the operational energy is much lower because there's thick wall cavities. And one of the beauties of a geodesic dome is, you see this quote from the American Institute of Architects. It says, the geodesic dome is the strongest, lightest, most efficient means of enclosing space known to man. So actually to enclose like a given amount of space with a geodesic dome versus a box, it takes 30 to 50% less materials, aka surface area, to enclose the same amount of space. So that's a huge advantage with domes, and they're also just naturally resilient to earthquakes and hurricanes because of just the strength of the structure and efficiency of the structure. So the raw minerals for chemically bonded ceramics can be reclaimed from a lot of different waste stream sources, including like seawater desalination, wastewater treatment plants, lithium mining waste, and then a bunch of like sawdust and agricultural waste and hemp and coffee grinds. There's all kinds of things you can add as like aggregates in the ceramic. The outcome is really a building that has a 500-year design life. So you can actually repair and resurface the building with the same ceramic material that you can mix up on site. It's not like you have to order a new part or have a specialist come out and do it. It's like really easy to repair and resurface. And our model is basically community-owned microfactories. And I'll get more into that in a second. Talked a little bit about just democratizing that design build process it's in the metaverse because just naturally this is a great place to build villages, or like visions of villages that then we can turn into physical reality. So it's basically a Minecraft kind of video game that we end up actually building real villages in the end. I should add, I'll try to. Okay, so the multi-stakeholder cooperative model, we say it's a model that's really in service to the earth and all our passengers, because we're bringing all the different stakeholder groups into co-ownership and co-governance. It's a decentralized kind of cooperative growth model. So we're setting up the first microfactory here in Nevada City. Call it a microfactory because it's basically not an assembly line, but it's like cells that produce, different types of ceramic components. There's maybe 4 or 5 different cells that produce the ceramic components and load them into shipping containers. And that factory model is replicatable in a lot of different, outside of probably most major cities in the US. We also started a collaboration with Zappos in 2019, working on a program to serve homeless communities. So a model where we can get big tech and government involved and be able to, for every a couple of domes that we sell for, affordable regenerative villages. We can donate one to a transitional village and use this model of essentially participatory democracy and placemaking. So bring the people who are going through experiencing homelessness into a community setting where they start to see themselves again as part of a big picture that includes them. So this model has been demonstrated by our partners in Portland, the City Repair Organization. So we're really scaling that with Zappos and with this dome building technology. So we're creating the technology and the market really for a regenerative village renaissance. The world we're building is one where outside of major cities, we have these villages that towns, villages that were created by the people who live there, are owned by the people who live there. And it really can catalyze a lot of pretty radical innovation, because when you can bring people together and design and build a village and also select, the right combinations of gifts that these people carry, they can build incredible labs and incubators together to solve a lot of the problems that we need to address as humans on Earth today to pull out of the 6th great extinction event. And the benefit here in a lot of ways is this like unleashing, trillions of dollars in intergenerational wealth that lasts for eternity. And this can happen practically overnight, in a lot of ways with Tesla Motors and the EV movement. It's like they discovered, or lithium ion batteries were invented, new material science finally enables the electric car. In the same way, new material science will enable us to manufacture radically more efficient homes. And if we couple it with a cooperative model and a regenerative village building model, there's the potential to really unleash this. People have so much more money when they're not spending so much on the home, and also the innovation and kind of communitas that comes when we can live and work together and are aligned on like a common vision, purpose for the future. Our progress so far, we raised about $2.2 million over the last 2 years. We have about 2,000 equity investors, a little over 30,000 customers, 500 paid deposits. And we just installed the first dome. Actually, just put the last panel in like a couple of days ago. So this picture is a little outdated. We haven't done any press yet because we raised capital last year and just focused all the energy and attention into engineering and design. And now we just are ready to start sharing with the media and whatnot. It's the world's first all ceramic home, and it happens to be a dome. So our second fundraise just began on Start Engine. So it was really important to us to at least make the investment opportunity available to people who can invest as little as $300 and have the same kind of just upside as like a venture capitalist would have, because everybody probably understands that's a huge pretty much all the wealth in the world is created by businesses. And up until 2016, it was only the 1%, the accredited investors that were legally allowed to invest in private companies. So you look at like Google, first investors, whatever, Jeff Bezos, Tiger Woods, and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and their return is like 700,000%. And then the public that invested at their IPO, their returns maybe like 30x. It was just a huge difference. So it was important to us to kind of level the playing field. And also it's a great way for a company like this to start, because we're having to create a market at the same time as raising capital. And it's unique in that we're basically developing a material science, a product design, and the manufacturing technology all at once. And we're doing everything in-house. There isn't like factories out there that we can just repurpose for ceramic dome making. It's a little different material science and different application than what's out there now. So we're doing all that development in-house. And yeah, so the call to action is please start a conversation. Help me connect with mission aligned people that want to see a regenerative future. Go check out our Start Engine page, and you can learn much more about the technology and business model and vision. And yeah, that's it. I noticed one question on the chat thing was around building codes. So the
Hey,
gentleman,
Morgan,
yeah.
we're gonna pause on the question and answer until after the segment.
Okay.
This was amazing. We love your work. You have a lot of excitement in the chat. Feel free to chime in on some of the questions being asked there. And we're really glad that you could be here and love your work. Now we're going to start. We're going to switch it up a little bit, the format. And well, I'm sorry, Morgan, did you have any kind of final closing statement, or was it the call to action basically to check out the Start Engine?
Yeah, pretty much. Check out the Start Engine, send me an email.
Awesome. Please add your email and the link to the Start Engine in the Zoom chat. Thank
Okay.
you so much, Morgan.
Mhm.
I'm such a huge fan of this team. The housing crisis is one of the biggest challenges of our time in our country, and Geoship is creating a really compelling and beautiful solution. And next, we've got a little bit more of a wisdom showcase than explicitly a technology one. We're going to take a logical examination of the media today and how by altering one's media diet, we can become more empowered leaders in our own lives. Our next showcase is from an extremely dynamic, intelligent, and entertaining friend from Down Under. Tane Hunter is the co-founder of FutureCrunch. He's a cancer researcher and science communicator who works with big data in the biological realm. His interest in medical genomics, big data, evolutionary biology led him to the University of Melbourne, where he completed a master's in bioinformatics in 2013. He's worked for the Royal Children's Hospital, diagnosing rare genetic diseases in children, and is currently completing his PhD at the Peter MacCallum Cancer Centre in Melbourne, Australia, where he's sitting today. Using molecular biomarkers and artificial intelligence to better understand, diagnose, and improve treatment for people suffering from cancer. He's also an avid sailor and participates in races around the world. FutureCrunch is an organization I love. It's a think tank and collective of multidisciplinary talent, including scientists, artists, researchers, inventors, and just amazing people who believe we have the solutions to make the world a better place. And if we want to change the story of the human race in the 21st century, we have to change the stories that we tell ourselves. Take it away, Tane.
Thanks, Brian. Hello, everyone. So yeah, I'm Tane. I am in Down Under in Melbourne. So yeah, basically I'm a nerd. I use machine learning AI to scan through the genetic code, DNA, to understand what causes cancer and help doctors choose the right treatments to improve patient outcome. And yeah, I'm part of FutureCrunch. It's a Melbourne-based think tank with a simple mission to discover what's happening on the frontiers of science and technology and seek out and tell stories of human progress, which I think we all need a little bit more of these days. I'm really excited to be here with you on World Logic Day. I mean, we've got buckyballs, ceramic biodomes, Buckminster Fuller, compost. Using my compost tomatoes are coming in here where it's summer and really hot. So if I start sweating, I apologize. But today I'd like to, Brian touched on it, to share with you a quality that I believe is one of the most important skills in the world right now. And it's not storytelling, which is one of the most important and most ancient technologies. Trust me, I do love storytelling, but however I want to talk to you today is about the stories that we tell ourselves. The information we consume has a profound effect on our logic. And as a scientist and a data nerd, I know the data that we use determines the answers to the questions we are looking for. And we often lose sight of that fact. Look, we all know that innovation and information are moving at unparalleled speeds. More than 80% of the world's adults are connected to the internet. Data, the zeros and ones that you've been talking about all day, now drive more global economic growth than the world's physical goods trade. Data technology and digital, once a sector on its own, is now a layer across all aspects of society. This exponential explosion means that the nature of our relationship with information, stories, and our data has fundamentally changed. Now, when it was rare, its value was to its ability to influence. But now that it's abundant, overwhelmingly so, we act on less and less of it. Unfortunately, though, most of the information available to us today is of low quality. And so the impact of information declines with its abundance. And so when it gets our attention, it's usually in response to a fire hose of negative news, enticing fear, anger, apathy, hopelessness, and unfortunately even hate, which does not help inspire people to make the world a better place. Or often when we consume information, it's due to its ability to attract, to entice, excite, or provide pleasure. In that way, information becomes indistinguishable from entertainment. So yeah, it's basically becoming cheap and of low quality, the equivalent of corn syrup and gummy bears, a bag of chips, junk info. It's engineered to be addictive. It temporarily satisfies our urges, but has minimal nutritional value. We all know that news and social media are like fast food for the mind. And as with junk food, our brains and bodies, we're just not evolutionarily equipped to process it. So it makes us unhealthy. That's why I've got a gut during lockdown. So poor quality information causes damage to our mental health and our ability to logically, rationally, and empathetically navigate the world around us. So I believe it's time to really think about the quality and the quantity of the information that we are consuming. And I know you've heard about this before, I'm sure, but it's important to be consistently reminded. We are evolutionarily hardwired to react to the dramatic, the negative, and instead of making us better informed, the news and social media causes us to walk around with the wrong risk maps in our head. And it makes us feel bad about ourselves and the world. We think terrorism is a thing. Terrorism is overrated in the news. Chronic stress is underrated. Political horse races and the culture wars, they make the headlines. We hear about sustainability fails rather than the wins. Fiscal irresponsibility is relegated to a small column on page 13. That is, if you still read newspapers. So on World Logic Day, let's ask ourselves, can you balance your information diet? Because we try and eat a balanced diet to make us healthy. We go to the gym to make us fit, but we do not think about information and stories in this manner. Can we individually and collectively inspire others to move from an information diet that's predominantly negative news? Can you ditch the clickbait and make your narrative nosh into one that feeds you, that nourishes you? Can you continually get out of the trenches, which I often find myself in, and make sure that you're consciously consuming your story souffle? Imagine if social media feeds were compliments and not trolling and misinformation. Imagine a world where the news was about solutions rather than the problems. I think, evidence, fact-based information of feats of human ingenuity overcoming our biggest challenges. I think that would have a huge impact. I believe it would inspire intelligent optimism, logical optimism. As the late, great Hans Rosling said, you have to be able to hold two ideas in your head at once. The world is getting better, and the world is not yet good enough. And if we're gonna make the world good enough, we need better stories, because there are incredible things happening out there. I mean, you name it, we've been talking about them today. Connectivity, artificial intelligence, blockchain, invest in that cryptocurrency, got intuitive computing, AI, digital twins, automation, renewable and clean energy, conservation, sustainability, gene editing, and biotechnology. Now, each of these are transformative in their own right, but together they're like a roaring tornado, creating once in a 100-year change in every industry at once. I love consuming, digesting stories of thousands of human beings from every corner of our planet. Stories of people who have found ways to adapt and create solutions, even through what sometimes feels like the darkest of times. The reason I love the kind of work that I do outside of the science nerd stuff and what we do at Future Crunch is to show people technologies and solutions about how we can build a better future. And also, the more that we learn in our research, the more we discover is that it always comes down to one thing: the human skills, the stuff the machines and technology will never replace. Adaptability, entrepreneurial spirit, resilience, creativity, good storytelling, kindness, and of course, love. Just remember, cynicism is easy because, well, you're never going to be disappointed. But intelligent, courageous, logical optimism it's a bit harder. It requires difficult conversations and opens us up to the possibility that we might be wrong. But it also, well, it's contagious. It's why it's in all of our epic stories. It boosts our adaptability quotient, what's known now as AQ. It allows us to redraw the boundaries of what's possible and to understand that it is truly a miraculous time to be alive. So let's take a moment to appreciate that. I truly believe that if we want to change the story of the human race in the 21st century, we have to change the stories we tell ourselves. Now, and to echo Brian's point earlier, partnering is an important thing, because in this complex and crazy world, collaboration always trumps genius. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Tane. That was amazing.
Thank you. And I really love the examples that you highlighted about taking, scientific discoveries and translating them to human needs, right? And that's sort of the whole point of a lot of these presentations, is that there's so much innovation that can happen, but what does that actually mean sort of at the local level, right? Our next showcase is going to be presented by Jeff Postgreen, who is the Global Impact Growth Lead at the UN's Sustainable Development Solution Network. Jeff has about 10 years of experience founding and working with social enterprises at the intersection of community development, food systems, and impact investment, both in the US and in South Africa. His leadership has been recognized by Forbes 30 Under 30, the Unreasonable Institute, the Global Good Fund, and the New Leaders Council. Jeff currently serves as the fundraising and growth lead at UN SDSN, and he leads strategic planning and oversees SDSN's Youth Seed Grant Fund, which is a new initiative to award young leaders grants to scale their entrepreneurial and educational initiatives to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So over to you, Jeff.
Thank you very much for the introduction. It says screen sharing is disabled.
Let's reconcile that right away. Just one sec, Jeff. Chris and Chelsea, if you don't mind, please making him host. There you go, Jeff. You should be able to now.
Great, thank you. Let's see if this works.
Jeff, if you press slideshow there, yeah, exactly.
Great. Can see my screen all right?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. All right, well, thank you for the introduction. I guess that it seems like a tough act to follow. I think now I know next time I make a presentation, I'll ask Tane to create it for me. It's one of the coolest and most interactive presentations I've seen. So yeah, hello everyone. Thank you to all the wonderful speakers for sharing more about your incredible passion, innovation, and technical concepts. It seems like our future is in good hands. As mentioned, my name's Jeff, and I'm the Global Impact and Growth Lead for SDSN Youth, which is one of the world's biggest networks of young leaders working towards sustainable development. I'd like to start by thanking the organizers for the detailed planning that went into these informative, inspiring, and logical sessions throughout the day. A special shout out to Nova Impact and Logictry for extending the invitation for us to speak at World Logic Day. So today I'm thrilled to build upon my colleagues' discussion in the previous panel and talk more about logic in the context of SDSN Youth's work, and then new and exciting initiatives that we're launching with key partners this year to further advance logical and scalable solutions to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. So, logic from our perspective, we believe young people want change now. As has been recognized by global leaders at the UN General Assembly, young people are the first generation to feel the impact of issues such as climate change, a once-in-a-century pandemic, and multiple economic downturns, and the last generation to be able to do something about it. These issues have put humanity, critical institutions, and governments at a crossroads. Far too many people are finding that societal systems are no longer working for them. It is imperative to rethink how we restructure and reimagine our economic and political systems in a more functional and logical way. At SDSN Youth, we believe young people are the best position to solve these systemic issues through logic, technology, collective action, and an unrelenting desire to create a more equitable and sustainable future. Today, more than half the population of 3.5 billion young people are under the age of 30. Young people are the biggest and most educated generation in history. Young people are launching twice as many businesses as their older counterparts. And 79% of millennial and Gen Z employees are loyal to companies that care about their impact on society. Since 2015, we have supported more than 3,000 young people across 127 countries dedicated to sustainable development. These youth have gone on to innovate new regenerative agricultural practices, develop financial products for the unbanked as a means for financial inclusion, and establish new sustainable business models for the circular economy. We are focused on continuing to forge a global alliance of young professionals and leaders and change makers and teachers and students in their quest to develop logical and practical solutions in their communities, cities, and countries to achieve the SDGs. So, why do we need logic now more than ever? Well, the world faces unprecedented challenges. We're now 7 years along in our journey to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. And each year, as you've heard throughout today, we continue to fall further behind. There's a $2.5 trillion annual financing gap that stands in the way of the SDGs annually. We're currently 43 years behind schedule towards achieving the SDGs, and currently 0 countries are on track to meet all of the goals. So, what do we believe is a logical next step? To address these issues and to further accelerate our solutions around this SDGs, we're launching the Global Youth Innovation Awards and the Global SDG Impact Awards. These awards are focused on showcasing, supporting, and awarding our youth members of more than 3,000 people and more than 3,000 young people and the solutions that they're working on, along with private sector commitments and pledges that are in alignment with the SDGs and can serve as a building block to scale SDG impact globally. The Youth Innovation Awards are a call for applications, as I mentioned, for more than 3,000 young people in our network who are building real solutions to the SDGs. While the Global SDG Impact Awards is a call for global nominations to recognize the movers and shakers in industry and academia in order to raise the awareness of the outstanding practices in the field and the potential to bring about rapid scale development in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. We will work collaboratively with the awardees to provide seed funding, mentorship, and access to exclusive opportunities and benefits to build upon their most critical Sustainable Development Goal ideas and to pave the way towards realizing the SDGs by 2030. So through our partnership with Nova Impact, we're taking a multi-sector approach and leveraging the power of SDG 17, Partnership for the Goals, towards building more logical solutions and sparking greater cross-sector collaboration to accelerate progress. We believe a systematic approach that engages stakeholders with unique perspectives in areas such as catalytic capital allocation, innovation, and sustainable development is essential for future problem solving. So there are a variety of ways in which supporters and attendees at World Logic today can get involved. So over the next month, we're going to be recruiting applicants to join our selection committee. There'll be two committees to participate on, as well as the opportunity to support the fund by providing mentorship or expertise to the awardees. So if you're interested, please be on the lookout through our various social media channels, which I'll share afterwards with you. Nominate. There'll be open call for nominations for industry and academic leaders who you all believe, whether you're working directly with and for them and or they're your peers throughout the sector. You'll have the opportunity to nominate them, and they'll be eligible for exclusive awards and sponsorship benefits, including access to our global network of young people who are eager to get more involved and help these companies scale their SDG initiatives. Sponsorship. Please spread the word to those you think might be interested in supporting and sponsoring the fund. The awards are going to give sponsors the opportunity to tap into SDSN Youth and Nova Impacts networks and communities while receiving global recognition at the Seed Fund Awards announcement. And lastly, please do feel free to join our newsletter to stay up to date on the latest fund developments and the youth industry action that's taking root around these key areas, both locally and globally, to address the SDGs. So in conclusion, I'd just like to say, with the collaboration of the speakers and attendees at World Logic today, World Logic Day, we can mobilize, invest in, and uplift the next generation to advance pathways and partnerships towards achieving the SDGs on a local and international scale. So thank you so much for the opportunity to close out this amazing, very informative and inspiring day. And I'm very much looking forward to continuing the conversation and exploring collaboration opportunities with the various speakers and attendees who are interested in engaging with our work moving forward.
Great, thank you so much, Jeff. And again, thank you to all of our participants for showcasing so many of the great innovations, programs, and initiatives that they're all working on. I know that there were a few questions, and I think we've tried to answer some of them in the chat, but unfortunately, we're long over time, and we are going to cancel the Q&A. But if you have any questions, please do reach out to any of the participants. All of their information is in the chat, and we will love to continue the conversation offline. And with innovators like so many of the people we just listened from, we're so optimistic that as a generation, we can really solve some of the grand challenges that we face today, and we're not waiting another 43 years to get those SDGs back in line. So happy World Logic Day, everyone. Thank you for celebrating with us. And I will hand it back over to Chris to close out the day.